All right, thanks for tuning in. So today we're diving into tiny habits and how you can use them for customer experience transformation. Let's go. So when you've been working for a while on your customer experience program, chances are that after you've mapped the journey and you've done some surveys, you want to inspire your colleagues to actually start improving, right? So you want to change behaviors. And there are a lot of books available, insights from behavioral science that you can use. And if you like to read, these 4 to me are one of the best books that I've been reading from, I think, 15 books I read or something. So definitely tips if you want to learn more about that. And these 2, so today we're going to dive into tiny habits. And I've added also Atomic Habits from James Clear. He references tiny habits from BJ Fogg. But several people I spoke to find his book more, let's say, readable than the one from BJ Fogg. And he also adds other sources. So it's not just about tiny habits. He also finds sources about marginal gain. So it's a little more, I think, maybe pragmatic than tiny habits. But I started reading Tiny Habits, so I'm still a fan of BJ Fogg. Okay, so the 2-minute summary of the findings, the model of tiny habits. Well, one of the things that we tend to think as humans is that, it's all about motivation. And yes, motivation matters, but it's not all about motivation. And so what happens is, I start to exercise. I want to exercise more. I want to be more healthy. I start exercising week 1, week 2, month 1, still going, month 3, and at one point I'm sort of hitting myself over the head. Hey, Zanna, you're not motivated. Well, the good news, motivation is just one part of 3. The other 2 you can design. And so you can help yourself to do your new behaviors. One of them is what he labels ability, which means how easy do you make it for yourself to do your new behavior. For example, if I want to eat less pizza, then maybe it's not super helpful if I have a fridge full of frozen pizza. So I can make it easier for myself to not have frozen pizza in my fridge. And so I can design my surroundings. For example, if I want to read more, every morning when I get up, I put a book on my pillow, on my bed. So when I go back at night, I go to bed, I think, I have an instant reminder, I want to read more. As you can design things, you can design your surroundings. So an example, let's say I want to donate money for the Red Cross. The Red Cross sends me a WhatsApp, and I can donate money just by responding to the WhatsApp. Super easy, I will donate money. If that same Red Cross sends me an email with a PDF that I need to print out, fill out, go to the post office and send back, super complicated, I will not donate money. Again, it's about design. Even my motivation could be at the same level, but the design can define whether I will actually do the behavior or not. So whether you will be successful in changing behavior is somewhere along this line. Everything above the line, you will change behavior. Everything below will be very tricky. So 2 of the 3 elements, motivation and ability. And the third one is what he calls prompt or a trigger or a nudge. So what does he mean by that? It's a way to remember to do your new behavior. And one of the, let's say, mistakes that we as humans make is that we feel that we have like superpower brain. And we think, yeah, I'll remember to eat more healthy. Yeah, I will remember to exercise more. Not the best strategy. You can set alerts. You can set alerts on your phone that, I need to drink more water, or I can set an alert on my computer. But with the overload of bleeps, alerts on your phone and socials, etc., this strategy is also becoming less and less effective. So what did he discover? And one of the key insights from his research is that one of the best triggers, one of the best prompts to do your new behavior is an existing routine, an existing behavior. An existing behavior you don't even think about anymore. For example, brushing your teeth. And the idea is that you connect your new behavior to an existing routine. Again, let's say I want to exercise more, and I already brush my teeth every evening. Then my new habit becomes, okay, after I brush my teeth, I do 5 push-ups, for example. And so I connect my routine of brushing my teeth to a new tiny behavior. So now every time when I start brushing my teeth, it becomes an automatic trigger. Ah yeah, I need to do my exercise after I brush my teeth. So one of the examples that I'll be sharing is a bit personal example on how I learned Spanish. I learned Spanish during COVID in June of 2020. And I went 2 weeks to, let's say, one of the Dutch famous institutes. A whole story with the nuns. If you're living in the Netherlands, you will know them. So I went 2 weeks to study there, and then at the end of that year, I had a workshop with a company in Argentina. And I thought, hey, it would be super cool if I could just do, 5-minute fluent introduction in Spanish. Off I went. So I had the 2 weeks, I wrote down a 5-minute introduction, and I thought if I just practice every evening, just 30 minutes, I will be fine. Week 1, every evening, I studied. Week 2, I studied maybe 4 out of the 7 nights, and week 3, I didn't do anything. And then, thank you universe, I discovered the Tiny Habits book, and when I read a book and I'm excited about it, I'm also critical. Because first I want to test, okay, does it really work in daily reality? So I said, okay, let me start designing a few tiny habits to learn Spanish, to give this introduction. So I created 3 tiny habits. The first one is, so my breakfast consists of pumpkin soup. Maybe I do a separate video on that. But whenever I put my soup on a table, so that's for me a routine every morning, and I sit down, I write down 1 sentence of that introduction on a post-it note. And the third thing, then I celebrate. So celebration for our brain is really crucial to be willing to keep doing this new behavior, right? So you need to validate yourself a lot. And you can just use something small, like say something to yourself, like, I don't know, bomb, or make a coffee latte macchiato, or something that for you feels like a celebration. The second tiny habit is when I move my chair, I stand up and I put my bowl in the sink. I paste that post-it note on the wall of my bathroom. And since I'm learning Spanish, muy bien, Zanna. My third and final tiny habit is because I'm in my home office, so I go to the bathroom several times a day. So whenever I go to the bathroom, I repeat that new Spanish sentence out loud 3 times. And I say, estoy orgullosa, I'm proud of you. So with these 3 tiny habits, I was indeed able to do this introduction easily, 5 minutes in fluent Spanish. And the interesting thing, so you can design all this, right? So you can just review, what are my existing routines? How many times do I walk to the coffee machine? How many times do I start and end a Zoom meeting? How many times do I check my phone? And you can start thinking, when you look during the day, what are my routines that I can use to connect new behaviors to? And one of the interesting things, I don't know if you noticed it, but if you look at these 3 tiny habits, they took out 0 extra time out of my day. And they're all in moments where I was doing something else. And so you can, again, think smartly about it and design it in such a way that it's impactful without taking you extra time. Well, if you translate this to a more business context, for example, if you're an account manager, then you could also say, okay, I probably pick up my phone 20, 30 times a day to look up a client's number to call them. So whenever I look up the phone number of a client, let's say personal attention was an important driver, during while you're looking up this phone number, you think to yourself, okay, how can I give this client more personal attention during our call? And just by being aware of that and having that mindset, you will have a different conversation, and it's not taking you any extra time. And you figure out a way to celebrate, I don't know, say to yourself, hey, I made the world a little nicer today, right? I made another client happy. As you can start designing your own context to create new behaviors. Well, as I mentioned in the introduction, so James Clear wrote a book also on atomic habits, where he references B.J. Fogg, but he's also using other sources. And one of the sources he mentioned is about the British cycling team. So back in 2003, all the cycling manufacturers in the UK were sort of ashamed and did not want to be associated with this team. That's how bad they were. Fast forward 5 years, in 2008, they became Olympic champions. What happened? One of the things that happened is that they had a manager who was completely convinced about the theory of marginal gains, improving everything with only 1%. For example, they checked, okay, which massage oil makes sure that the muscles recover the fastest. Or they painted the inside of the truck completely white so they could easily see the sand grains, because the sand grains would have a negative impact on the mechanics of the bike. Now, listening to these two super small improvements, you think, how can they ever become Olympic champion? But by installing that mindset on everything, in the end, you get this exponential increase of improvements. Sorry, it took a while. I need to hit the keyboard a few times. So you see, if you improve just 1% every day, you get this exponential improvement. And so you might feel, okay, but does this really have an impact? Yes, it's really having an impact. Because it becomes a mindset, and you start viewing everything through that lens. So you're adding each improvement on top of the other, and that's how you get this exponential growth. So how do you translate this specifically to CX? So on the right side, you see an example of such a tiny habit. I will walk you through that in a minute. But one of the key steps, so you've probably mapped the journey, you probably have some survey insights, and then a lot of companies struggle with, okay, but how do I get the organization to do something and to improve? That's always a challenge. So the first thing you do is you take one of the key drivers. And if you don't know what I mean with the key drivers, I've added a link here down below to the video where I explain how to use smart statistics to find the drivers. And no, that's not the MPS root cause methodology. It's a different approach. So you take the number one driver, for example. Let's say, again, the number one driver is personal attention. Then you check which roles of employees do we have in this journey. Maybe we have an account manager. Maybe we have a UXer. Maybe we have a call center agent. And for each of these roles, you create a tiny experiment based on that number one driver. So you create a menu of 5 or 10 experiments that they can choose from. Why a menu? Because it's often super challenging to start brainstorming about improvements. Employees feel it's often challenging. It's not super creative. It's often very vague, like we need a new CRM system. A lot of times they mention it's something with IT. Well, this is almost never the key driver. So what we figured out, what really works well, is that we make an 80% version of the menu, and then we just have a 1-hour call with 2 or 3 colleagues who are in that role, and we let them sort of shoot at the menu. Is this the correct menu? Are you missing something? Should we add maybe? Should we tweak something? And then you have a really fast list of menus that they are also really excited to start implementing. Then the final point is, of course, because they are tiny habits, I'm not able to see the impact of my personal tiny habit on, let's say, the NPS measurements that we do every month. So for the experiments themselves, you're asking qualitative feedback from the employees to ask, okay, hey Zanna, did you feel you have a different conversation? So did you feel it was helpful to you to add more value to the customer? And if the context allows for it, you can also ask, did you get some feedback from a customer that you didn't get before you were trying this experiment? Qualitative feedback. Then in the end, because you will figure out a way where several employees will say, hey, yes, I want to start experimenting. Every time we see that in 3 months' time, you definitely see also the impact of the NPS on satisfaction. And so in the end, you definitely also see the measurable results. So on the right side, how do you create such a menu? So let's say the source of this card, this menu is Strategizer. And we started with the original test card that has 4 different elements on the card, but we felt it was a bit too theoretical, a bit too much of a hassle. So we cleaned it up and we're just using now 2 elements from the card. And basically it's just a title. So have a title for the experiment, which driver is it connected to, and then two important ingredients are, okay, what do we think, what is our hypothesis? Based on the driver, we expect that if we give more personal attention, that our satisfaction will increase. And then, of course, the most important part is a super concrete, tangible experiment that I can integrate in my daily work. It contains a period during the next 4 weeks. It contains a trigger. This is, for example, let's say I'm a call center agent. After I get an alert that there's a new customer in my queue, I take just two seconds to think, okay, how can I give this next customer in my call more personal attention? C'est ça. That's one experiment that they try for 4 weeks. They see how it works. Maybe they tweak it. And then after the 4 weeks, you share, hey, was it helpful? What did you learn? Share with your colleagues. Maybe they can also use it. And so that's how you translate tiny habits super concretely into application for customer experience. Well, of course, I can rant on for days about this topic, but maybe I do an additional follow-up video. I think you now have enough to start the next step, right? You have the journey map, you have some insights. Okay, but what's the next step in creating improvements that employees are willing to start experimenting with? And then just to give you sort of some hint of what you can think of more, it's okay, how do you nudge them during these weeks? How do you share learnings? How do you involve leadership that everybody feels, hey, it's not just a project, it's really something that matters to all of us? Integrate it in existing meetings. If you have a weekly meeting, is it on the agenda to say, hey guys, how are we doing with the experiments? So it's not really something separate, but it's already becoming part of the, let's say, the existing way of working. So, well, that's it. That's how you can use tiny habits to make sure that employees are excited to start improving, to start experimenting, to see the experience of your customers increase. So all that's left to say is, let's keep on changing the world.